I created a new update to the New Jersey Transit F40PH-2CAT engine sound. This update adds a lot more bass to it, so it sounds a lot more realistic. Now the engine sound has enough bass in it to cause walls to vibrate, just like in real life. Let's give it a listen. Now I'm going to have to apologize in advance for some of the idling sounds. Ideally you want a very long sound that you can loop properly, but it's pretty much impossible to find sound effects like that for New Jersey Transit locomotives because the drivers of these trains usually do not accelerate one notch at a time, giving the engine a chance to idle at all between these notches. So they go straight from notch 1 to notch 8 when accelerating, and you're not really going to find any footage of the sound you need for that. I was unable to find all of the sounds that I needed, so I had to make do with what was available. This is Netherwood Station, which used to be my home station when I lived in New Jersey. In the future, I plan on making a renameable station sign to go in place of this generic one that I've been using. And of course, you can see the ticket office, which is closed. There's not really much of a need for these anymore since you can purchase tickets while on the train these days. This is the walkway that leads underneath the tracks. Attention passengers, due to construction, the next train to Newark Penn Station will be arriving on the Highbridge-bound track. Attention passengers, due to construction, the next train to Newark Penn Station will be arriving on the Highbridge-bound track. This is the local train to Newark Penn Station. The next station will be a family of Scotch Plains. Keep your feet off your seats, it's not your living room. This is the future site of Long Branch Station, but as you can see, I have not done much work on it since. Someone requested that I build Metropark Station. I so far haven't gotten that much done, as you can see, just one track and one bridge, but I do plan on finishing it eventually. I may have to make the station itself from scratch because I probably won't be able to find the components that I need on the download station to make this platform. This was supposed to be a replica of New York Penn Station. The problem is that I cannot find any to scale maps, or rather, in the past I couldn't. I recently found one on Amtrak's website that's actually to scale, so I'm going to try to use that, and hopefully these switches will actually be where they're supposed to be. Because the main issue that I have with these diamond crossover and double slip switches is I cannot get them angled correctly since I can't find any to scale maps to model them after. So we'll see how that goes. People who have been with this channel for a long time will probably remember this route. This was supposed to be a replica of the Newark area for New Jersey Transit, Amtrak, Conrail, and PATH. However, I kept getting into some issues with the AI trains. They kept not going the correct way. For example, there's a switch near Newark International Airport where the trains can either switch between track 1 and track A, but the trains would not switch onto the correct track. Train cars with a cab car in front kept going the wrong way down the track because the game can't understand the concept of cab cars, and it thinks the locomotive is the front of the train. So after stopping at a station, it would just change directions with the locomotive in front and keep going down the line until it either gets to a red signal, another train, or the end of the line, and it would just keep going into the portal, and it's so frustrating. Also, if a cab car was waiting at the interlocking right before it switches onto the Northeast Corridor line, and it had to wait for a freight train, after the freight train passes, it would not go anywhere because it could not figure out how to change the switches. For some reason, cab cars in this game cannot change switches. Freight trains kept switching down the ramp and going to Cranford Station instead of continuing down the main line on the Lehigh line towards Pennsylvania. Not only that, but if a train had to wait for the freight train before going on to this interlocking, they would just get stuck at the signal and wouldn't change the switches afterwards, and it would just keep waiting until another train showed up and then wait for that one as well. Even if there was plenty of time for it to sneak onto the main line before the next train showed up, it still wouldn't do that. I was actually thinking maybe reverse the directions of the freight trains so that they operated on the left-hand track. That way the passenger trains wouldn't have to switch onto the right-hand track in order to continue down the line. But then I would have the opposite problem on the other side, where trains have to switch from the Northeast Corridor to get to Union Station. So either way, I'd have to deal with this problem. Now, when testing this route in Trainz 2012, I never had this problem. But for some reason, in Trainz A New Era, I kept having this issue where a passenger train would switch into Union Station, and then it would stay there, and then a freight train would go on the outside track and go around the passenger train on the same track, which obviously can't happen in real life because they would have crashed into each other. I also had this issue where the freight trains kept using the nearer tracks to go through the station instead of the outer tracks, which can't happen in real life because the freight trains are too wide and would collide into the platform if they used the nearer tracks. In the older games, you could fix this by just using the priority message and just saying that trains with a certain priority have to use this track instead of that track. But for some reason, they kept ignoring that in this game, so I could not get the freight trains to use the correct track. Those reasons and more are why this route is being temporarily shelved. Also, I haven't had that many issues with the locomotive leading, but the cab car just wasn't working. Hopefully in the future they'll fix this. Last but not least, we have Red Bank Station. This was requested from a fan, and I have been working a lot on this route, and I've been enjoying it so far. Luckily, I haven't had any issues with the AI making any mistakes so far. This is the local train to Long Branch. The next station stop will be Little Silver. This is a northbound local train to Hoboken. The next station stop will be Middletown Station. This is a southbound train to Bayhead. The next station stop will be Little Silver.